Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
What's going on, everybody? Not quite as late as last night. John Zannis, Bobby Manning. Noa Dalzell is also in Los Angeles, where she is finding a spot from where to broadcast, and she will join us on another late night edition of the Garden Report as the Celtics drop a pretty gross game to the Los Angeles Lakers, 117-96. I think Bobby summed it up best in our text thread, saying, where was it here?
I don't even know what to say about this one.
I can't even get mad at this one, said Bobby Manning.
Yep.
These guys haven't looked serious game to game in a long time. Someone else in the chat echoed this as well. It's hard to get mad at a team who's playing like the version of themselves that might be actually who they are. And I think the most disconcerting thing about tonight's game, and I know there's going to be a faction of people who are going to talk about this being the fifth game in 7 nights and the second of a back-to-back, and all of those things are valid, and that stuff happens.
Was it 5 and 7?
I maybe it's 5 and 8, whatever it is. It's not a great stretch. But they lost, and they looked horrible, and it was a non-competitive game, and that's what was the most depressing thing about it is it didn't necessarily – it just looked bad for a lot of different reasons, and we'll get into some of those here. I know there's quite a few – I was hanging out in the chat waiting for you, Bobby. Defeated people here, so we'll get their thoughts. We'll hear from Joe Mazzulla in the shortest press conference of all time. Before we get started, I want to let you know – 5 and 7 games. I want to let you, and again, that's a tough stretch, and you're on the road. I'm not putting that aside, but it doesn't explain everything. Episode brought to you by PrizePicks, largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the app, PrizePicks app. Use code CLNS, get 50 instantly when you play 5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks. Play 5, get 50 instantly. Also, would like to tell you about Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, download Game Time today. What time is it, Bobby? It is game time. Noah's getting set up. Game time. Noah, give us a thumbs up when you think you're good to go. We'll bring you on here. And Bobby, let's just get your initial thoughts on this game. And Noah's jumping in here too.
So I'm watching it, and early on, I'm like, and this is how Joe felt too. I know we'll hear from him in a second here. It's like, all right, like the ball movement, like some of the shots they're getting. Porzingis posting up Reeves, good stuff. Defensively, they're getting hit hard a little bit. It's a bit of a back and forth, but you like where they're at after one. Then the second comes around, start to dig themselves a little bit of a hole. You're down 19 at half, and you can tell that the Lakers are trying to match their three-point numbers by limiting Boston's pretty aggressively. You know, I'm talking to some of the Laker guys at half, and they're like, yeah, like they're switching, they're playing physical, they're just trying to take that 3 away from Boston. Like JJ knows what they're gonna do, and he's all over it. And that's basically what the game became from that point on. Aggressive switching, ton of physicality. You saw Porzingis at one point, even with Reeves just getting completely banged out of the post there and getting frustrated. Brown was frustrated after a no call inside, and they just got beaten up for almost the entirety of the rest of the night from that point on. And whereas I thought they missed some good looks early and generated some quality shots and that it might go the other way in the second half, they just kind of faded. And that's how Joe felt too. Oh. And there wasn't much concern in the locker room after this one. And I understand why, because there's a lot of excuses that you just brought up there, John, that are valid. But this was bad. And their defense could never pick them up and make it a competitive game.
Yep.
It was, like I said, bad, but not unexpected.
Noah?
Yeah, similar assessment. I think, honestly, it was a little bit of a puzzling watch that, I don't know why they fell down as fast as they, behind it when they did, but they just didn't do enough to make it a game once they were down double digits. We never really saw a real run. I thought the 4 consecutive free throws was kind of like the last Their only chance there was to come back if they were going to hit those 4, be down by 8, like make a late push. That felt to me like it's just not going to be your night. And I know there's the whole like last night was overtime and back to back and all that, but they had 3 fresh guys in the rotation. Porzingis didn't play, Drew didn't play, Al didn't play, so I don't really think that it was a legs thing. I thought the Lakers just played a lot better than them, and it goes back to the same thing we've talked about. They haven't been able to put together 3, 4, 5 consecutive good basketball games. They really haven't. And this was a good opportunity because this would have been the most impressive win of the road trip because you're facing a fully healthy team. And they weren't able to string together much consistency on either end, I thought.
Yeah, then I think that was the key. Third quarter is the only quarter they didn't lose. LA's offense went in the tank. They only scored 16 points. Celtics outscored them 20-16 in that quarter. But that was the exact point. No, you mentioned the 4 missed free throws. It gets to 74 there. And it's not just the 4 missed free throws. You had a couple of possessions where Jaylen Brown had a 3 missed wildly from the left corner. And then Drew Holiday, who was a total no-show tonight after being off last night. So again, it's not the legs thing, just a really bad Drew Holiday performance, misses another 3. And then you had those back-to-back. Tatum misses 2. And then Brown misses 2. You're getting the stops. You're getting the stops there. The Lakers went like 5 minutes without scoring a bucket during that stretch. That's exactly the spot where you could have done it. I'm being told you guys have to move, so I'll just keep filibustering. I'll play a little Joe Mazzulla there too and give you a chance to relocate. I know Bobby's got to try to find a new spot. That was the key, Noah. That quarter there is where you kind of knew they didn't have it. And then the Lakers came out on a 9-0 run in the fourth, 12-2 overall, and Mazzulla emptied the bench. I think that's what bugs me the most. It felt non-competitive. Like it didn't look like they could come back in this one. The Lakers imposed their will, their physicality. They talked about it after the game. JJ Redick as well, the switching, what they did on defense to get everything done. And Noah's been booted as well. Those guys were setting up on the court and have to take a walk. I'm watching Bobby set up as well. So they're going to head into the concourse. That was pretty bad. And that's what bugs me. I said this to these guys in the chat a while ago, and I'll bring it up again because I'm curious, Bobby and Noah's take here is the best thing you could say about this team. This would make me feel the best is that, they're just not into it. Championship hangover, other reasons, injury have you. That's the best thing you could say. The worst thing is that this is who they are. And that is like, that's the scariest thing is what if that's what they are? They're just this, and this is who they've been. And it's again, when somebody, that's that saying, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. That's kind of it right now. And you've got problems throughout the lineup right now. And I'm always going to say it's really easy to look at this box score and see what you got out of Pritchard and White and Holiday and be like, well, those guys didn't do anything there. I mean, geez, 1 for 6 from Holiday, 1 for 5 from White, combined 6 points. Each of them made a single 3-pointer, weren't really doing much with the ball, weren't doing much to generate or initiate offense. Fine. I'm going to always point back to Tatum and Brown, an incredibly passive Tatum game, incredibly passive. And again, we're going to have to talk about rotations and what it means and why they're getting into it. Because Tatum was never at any point in time in this game, never at any point. So really bizarre. We're going to hear from Joe Mazzulla here because, Bobby, what happened? Did people not show up to the press conference?
Yeah, late arriving crowd. Not much from Joe, as you'll hear here. So I think we got the gist of it, and he was out of there. So yeah, not many reporters in there for the start
All right, so
of it.
We're gonna play Joe Mazzulla right now. Here's this is a very, very brief Joe Mazzulla talking about the loss after the game.
Gaining consistency, has that become an issue? Like, how do you guys become more consistent? Even if you lose tonight, you play maybe a better game as opposed to
Yeah.
it's just kind of up and down?
Yeah, I think it's just the process. What did we do well? Whether you win or lose, just trying to focus on that. That's how you gain the consistency, regardless of the result. But tonight we didn't. The transition defense, the offensive rebounds, those things, just didn't do them well. So we just gotta really. It's a bit just regardless of what happens. It's about the process of the things that go into winning and just trying to work through those. I thought the Lakers came out. They got 20 points in transition in the first half, 8 points of offensive rebounds, and that's the best thing that they do.
This one's playing inside out
Our
right
offense
now.
was intentional in the first quarter, kind of waned a little bit there, but I thought that first half of their ability to get out in transition, really impacted the game.
Did you feel any sort of hangover from the overtime last night?
I'm sure that may have played a small part into it, but it's not an excuse. That's part of the game. But yeah.
When you look at just offense versus defense in this game, do you feel like the lack of Porzingis had it going early, Jaylen had it going, but then the supporting cast really struggled to get anything going there? Did that kind of hurt you guys defensively, or do you feel like that was kind of unrelated?
I don't think it was. I think it was a little unrelated. Like I said, I think it was more the transition baskets that they were able to get, the points in the paint that they were able to get, and from transition, from some of their penetration, and from some of their offensive rebounds.
Joe, is gaining consistency become an issue? Like, how do you guys?
So that one started late. We actually started at the end, and it rewound there. That was the whole press conference, $1:30, and then Joe got out of there. Not much in terms of answers there, just kind of a shoulder shrug. And I don't know what Joe. People are in here, Joe, and rotations and this and that. Look, there's nothing you can do about rotations when your starters suck. Like nothing. There's nothing. We're not focusing on the right things here. If people think it's a Joe thing or a bench thing,
Are they blaming Cornette?
no, nobody. I'm just saying, just relax, Bobby. I'll tell you if Luke's catching fire. No, look, across the board, Horford coming off the bench, he's a minus 22 in 20 minutes. He doesn't do anything. Luke didn't do anything. Their bigs in general, outside of Porzingis didn't do much. There, and Anthony Davis, is Anthony Davis. It is what it is, but I'm going back to Tatum. Like I said, it's you could point your finger at a million different people because you had bad games across the board, bad games from pretty much everybody not named Kristaps tonight. There's nobody there's no one who's safe. Horrible Holiday and White games, just non-impactful. Brown, Tatum. Again, the Lakers did what they wanted to do. They switched aggressively. They got physical. They tried to keep them off the 3-point line. Reggie Miller kept saying it during the game broadcast almost too much, but they were fine playing it through Porzingis in the post there. They were settling. They were fine to let Boston run their offense that way or to get those tougher contested twos. Could keep them off the 3-point line. And then, when the Celtics were trying to get threes, and again, they had some better looks in the first half, then they just started launching, and then they just started hunting, and then they just started taking whatever was available to them. And it just didn't, didn't translate. And that's what you got. So we got Noah back as well. And Noah, we just heard from Joe. So, I'm not blame pieing this right out of the gate here, but the chat seems to have a lot of opinions. I'm always going to look at Tatum and Brown here and wonder what's going on with those guys. And, when things are going badly, like fine, bad game from Holiday, a bad game from Derek White, really bad game across the board from everyone not named Kristaps Porzingis. It's got to be up to the stars at that point to take things on their shoulders and elevate a little bit. And I thought this was an incredibly passive game from Tatum. And again, I'm not going to blame things on this rotation that we've made so much about. But you had Tatum in
the rotation.
It's not the rotation, but you went right back to it where Tatum exits and he plays a first quarter where he's basically got one shot attempt. He's a non-factor at this point. You're well into the second quarter, and Jason Tatum, you're beginning the second quarter, and Jason Tatum hasn't done a thing to make his mark on the game, and it stayed that way. He was incredibly passive all night long. This wasn't a take charge sort of game.
This is what we're talking about here, Noah, at this point. We talked about rotations and where they're playing these guys in the first quarter, and I think that's part of it. But it's really who's running the show, who's running the offense, who's getting the shots. And that's becoming a thing here, I feel like, as we watch it. And it's not just Brown and Tatum. I feel like it's Brown, Tatum, and Porzingis to some degree. Because in this game, a lot of it's force-feeding Porzingis, going to that matchup over and over and over
It's
again.
my ball, your ball. That's what we're playing right now.
That takes the ball away from Tatum early, and then the minutes and that rotation thing that we're talking about here, John, take him off the court. And I like the way Brown was moving the ball early, and he got off to a good start in this game, but it phases out Tatum. And you just get to the point where you're like, does their game plan work now? And I get a lot of it's making shots, right?
That's what I mean. I'm not saying it's the rotations, Bobby. What I'm saying is, are we at a point now where Jason Tatum feels that he has to be deferential in the first quarter so Jaylen Brown feels involved? Like, have we reached that? Because that to me is silly if that's the case. Like, well, I'll just hold off and I'll cook later, but let's let Jaylen get going because it looks like it, and it's that sucks. Like, that's not how you play. So again, I don't know if that's what's going on, but that's what it looks like, and that's what it feels like, which is, well, Jaylen doesn't do well if we don't let him get his shots early, so let's run it through Jaylen. And then you're at the mercy of whether or not he's going well and whether or not, like, you know, Tatum's going to be able to get it back later. And it wasn't exclusively Jaylen. It was Jaylen and it was Porzingis on the switches. But it took Tatum completely out of the game, and you're doing this weird taking turns thing. And Noah, are we blowing this out of proportion?
I was relocated, but then cleared to stay, so I missed a little bit of what you guys said there.
Jason Tatum is soft, basically, is what we're saying. No, we're saying how in the new rotation universe. I'm not blaming the rotations here, but it did feel like Jason is being intentionally deferential so he can get other guys going. He's even mentioned in the past that he's okay doing that, and that he's, you know, when we harped on Jason Tatum's slow starts last year, or people did, he said in interviews openly, like, you know, well, sometimes I'm trying to kind of wait to make my mark and figure out when I'm going to get it going, because you know, and so tonight was one of those where I mean, he was just non-existent to start the game here. So we do have a bit of a my ball, your ball sort of problem in terms of, like,
feels
as
like
Bobby said,
it,
we're worried about who's getting their shots or setting up shots for people instead of running a regular offense and just kind of working it the way it's supposed to work. You don't see,
and then nobody.
Here's the thing. Here's the one thing I'll say. They don't look like the Celtics at all. Like, I mean, maybe for a flash or two, but there's so few moments where you're like, oh, that's what the Celtics look like, or that's what I know them to be from having watched them all of last season. They don't look like that at all. When they are successful, it just feels like it's because shots are falling, but they don't look like themselves offensively or defensively for majority of games lately, for the last month plus.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think where I would differ from you, John, is I'm not overly, and I know this, Tatum and Brown are the stars and they get the credit when they win, so they should get the blame when they lose. But the biggest change to me this season, and especially the last 6 weeks, is the backcourt. Like, it is Drew and Derek. Like, those guys can't be putting up, what did Drew, you know, they finished with
6 points total on 1 for 11,
yeah, like,
2 for 11 shooting.
That's the difference. I think that's the difference between last year's team and this year's team, and even earlier on. Like, this team is not constructed to be a two-headed monster with two stars that are leading the way, and then everybody else kind of is in the background. Like, the reason they were so dynamic last year is because they had 5 guys that on any given night could go for 20. And I don't know why Drew and Derek have both struggled this year offensively. I don't know if there's, you know, I think defensively that neither of them has been as good as they were last year either. But a part of it is, like, I do think that they need to see some consistent offense. And I don't know if it's, you know, trying to fit the thing is in that it's like there are easy ones to push to the back of, like, Derek can take 3 shots and it's no big deal. But they need that backcourt to be a near all-star level backcourt. They were part of the all-star campaign that the Celtics are running, right? They're not playing like all-stars or fringe all-stars or anything.
No.
So that to me is what's been standing out during this inconsistent stretch more than Brown or Tatum.
It does, as I said, is the thing is they are Brown and Tatum. So when you have other guys struggling, it's kind of incumbent on them to lift it. and not for Jason Tatum to take 12 shots in a game and not really be involved. That's what's odd to me. But yeah, I pointed this out earlier. I mean, Holiday, and I put it on Blue Sky. There's one of my few pieces of commentary. Like, you're getting nothing out of Holiday, and then on top of that. And again, I was prepared for this conversation, is Derek White. In January, points are down, field goal percentage down, 3-point percentage down, assists are down, everything is down. And on top of that, uncharacteristically dumb mistakes. And he's found himself in Joe Mazzulla's doghouse on a couple of occasions, which is bizarre. You see him and Joe sometimes kind of barking at each other. You see him frustrated. You see him making dumb decisions that he doesn't normally make. You're not seeing him make the same defensive impact he's making. Something's definitely off right now. And it's so weird because this is a person who we probably had more faith in to consistently play right, do the right thing, and be near perfect, where you just didn't have to worry about it. And same with Holiday. You didn't necessarily worry about their stats as much as you worried about everything going right when they had the ball in their hands or when they were on the court. And it's not at all right now. And that is a little bit frightening, because you need their play to go up. I wonder how much of that is a result of them just slumping, or because of the way that the offense is running right now, and because we're not the ball's not being shared as much. It's being out in Tatum's hands or Brown's hands a little bit more to initiate the offense or to get themselves going. Now that you got Porzingis back, you're trying to feed him as well, that they've just kind of fallen out of kilter with what they normally do offensively to be able to get good shots. And that's taking these guys out of the game a little bit more. I'm not really sure there, but something's off, and it really is rough. What we've been going through with those guys. We've got a couple of.
Oh, we lost John. Well, I agree with what he's saying there, Noah, in terms of.
I was trying to load up a post-game soundbite, and I swiped myself right off of the.
It was shocking.
I just went flying off the screen. I don't know how that happened. Sorry. We'll set up the post-game soundbite first. We just wanted to hear from one of our sponsors, PrizePicks. The Garden Report is brought to you by PrizePicks, the best place to get real money sports action, with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winning. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. And you know what's coming. That's right. The big game is almost here, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with PrizePicks. PrizePicks is also going to be giving away a free pick for the big game, where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw for 1 yard to win. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. For the NFC Championship coming up right now, Jayden Daniels only needs 1 passing yard for you to win 1 square. That's 1 passing yard for Jayden Daniels. I think he's going to get it. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. So go ahead. Download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the PrizePicks app. Code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. And check out that PrizePicks app. NFL weekend. This is a super fun weekend with the conference championships, of course. As we said, download it here. Play 5, get 50 instantly. Bob, I'm sorry I trampled you here coming back onto the screen, trying to get that ad read in. So what were you guys saying?
Yeah, I agree with you on the offense impacting the guys who have struggled further down the lineup. And I hate going to the role guys' struggles. And I know it's different whether we're talking about White, because they rely on White, and they certainly relied on Holiday last year. But to me, it is limited opportunities for those guys in a game like this. Injuries, I think they're both banged up. And then I think that takes a hit on White's confidence in particular. I think Holiday shakes off a lot of this stuff. I don't think he's in a position where he can take over. and whether it's physically or just his standing on this team. So I just don't know how you can look at those guys and say they're the problem right now. I know they're part of the problem because of the shooting, but the shooting's a problem across the board with this team right now. And I think a lot of it is lack of ball movement, especially this month. I think it's too much ISO. They're spamming actions. Again, John, JJ opened the game saying, we know what they're going to do. They're just going to attack the weak link over and over and over again, and we got to be ready for it. And so they brought help. They blew up some possessions, and it worked, but a lot of it was just Porzingis flipping in a tough floater over Reeves or whoever, and Lakers were probably willing to live with that over giving up threes. They've lost their superpower, and part of it is guys missing shots, and that's happened at a high rate this year. But part of it is that the offense isn't as functional, and a lot of that's coaching. Like, I'm going to continue to harp on that. We're not seeing the plays run. We're not seeing the level of activity.
There are no plays.
Last year. They're just attacking one matchup and doing it over and over again, and it becomes predictable.
You find a matchup, and you're hoping that the guys make the right reads.
And how can the other guys not lose rhythm just watching?
You get stuck watching a little bit, but also it's extremely predictable. So you got to mix it up a little bit, I think, for sure. So yeah, Noah, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I do think that it was always kind of a read and react offense with very little structure, and when it works, it works. And
we saw a lot more last year, though.
Yeah, we saw a lot more, and I don't know how much of it was the coaching. It is possible that it was the coaching. I also think that there's a certain level of the players are just not are really not doing much out there. Like, it's a lot of guys going one-on-one. It's a lot of guys like Tatum or Brown, or like, I don't know if it's they're calling different plays. It's just hard for me to imagine that the same team that last year, like, you wouldn't just stop calling those same actions, right? Like, a lot of times, like, there is an explanation for why we're seeing the same things over and over again. But I don't know if it's the players or the coaches. I really just I can't say it's like a Joe thing. I guess to a point, like, he's not really adjusting. We're seeing the same stuff.
So that's it.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily doing anything wrong, but at a certain point now is when you turn to Joe and be like, so what next, right? And again, it's silly to think that, like, we or people in the chat or general fans or media have the answers, but it's not that his philosophy or what they were doing before wasn't a good plan. At the moment, it's not working for them. So this is where I think this is kind of where the rubber meets the road with Joe. He said it, how many press conferences? He said it again tonight. It's the process, right? If we go through our process correctly, I'm not super worried about the results. Well, the results are consistently bad recently. And if you still think that the process is being followed, then you might have to now finally start looking at the process. And that's kind of where you're at here. And that's what the best coaches do. And, you've seen it. Celtics have seen it firsthand, with a guy like Spoelstra in the playoffs a couple of years ago, the way they changed up their defensive coverages. Celtics spent all day practicing how to play a zone in the Miami game, and they don't play zone until the fourth quarter of a game. And, well, we're good at that. We've messed people up doing that. It's a thing that we do. We're going to do something different here. And again, playoffs are a different animal because you're trying to win a single game. But here, if you see teams are kind of figuring stuff out and adjusting to what you're doing, you do wonder whether or not you need to mess around. He did with the rotations, but I thought that had nothing to do with their failures. What was going on in the first quarter? They're the best first quarter team in basketball right now. And it's not just now, but for January, they're still scoring at a decent clip in the first quarter, but their defense is terrible. It has been terrible in the first quarters lately.
It gets concerning.
So you made a rotation to placate one person, but that's not an adjustment. That's pampering, there's probably more that needs to be done here.
Yeah, and the defense has frustrated me all season. If things aren't going right, you should be able to lean on that. And instead, when things aren't going right, they're getting away from that end. And throughout this game, they looked a step slow. I'm sure the games that we're talking about here contribute to that. But similar stuff we've been watching all year, guys getting lost a little bit in help positions and giving up shots that they shouldn't. with a little resistance.
And not dealing well with physicality on either end of the floor.
Yeah.
Here's Jason Tatum talking about that.
Being physical, picking up the pressure. Then they were scoring on us, so we weren't getting out in transition.
And teams are trying to do that to you. What does it kind of force you guys to do? That you're seeing more physicality this year, and you're seeing more teams trying to take those threes away from you guys?
Match physicality with physicality. You gotta be tougher, be stronger, meet the challenge.
Is there any fatigue from overtime last night?
For me?
Yeah.
It's tough, but it's part of the job. Play overtime, play back-to-backs. Sometimes you gotta travel, so you can't really, no excuses.
So, Noah, they say they have to, Jason Tatum says you have to play with more physicality. Is this team capable of playing with more physicality?
Yeah, of course. I mean, they're capable of playing with more. Is it capable of not being an issue? I don't know. I didn't feel like there were any. I don't know that there was a playoff matchup last playoff run that really tested them from a physicality standpoint compared to what there could have been. So I always felt like there was that outstanding question around like how are they going to respond to increased physicality, and it does feel like around the league, night in and night out, teams are more physical. And I don't know if it's a league-wide thing. I asked Sam about that at shoot-around yesterday if he feels like there's like big changes on how the NBA is, because to me it seems like every time I watch them play, teams are more physical with them. I don't know if it's enough to know if other teams are doing it as well, but it's the it's out. The secret's out that that's what you do with the Celtics. It's been out for a couple of years now, and I do think it starts with Jaylen and Jason as far as setting the tone, but it's the guards as well. I mean,
so
again,
that's it.
Yeah, they were two all defensive guards last year, right? Like that's the level of.
And that's the thing is their physicality is different in terms of like, it's not just straight like, oh, I'm just going to be tough with you and smash into you and this and that. Their physicality is more based on, defensive pressure, their length, bothering people, getting up in people's space, and things like that, which they're not doing right now. It starts with the guards there, but it's certainly Tatum and Brown as well, and maybe just it's passivity as much as it is lack of physicality standing around. But Tatum and Brown have to be the physical presence on offense by deciding that they're going to and assert themselves and exert their will on the opponent by attacking and going downhill and beating up people. And I do think that you're giving people a break when you're settling. Sometimes that's the part of the, that's the part of the 3 versus 2 argument that I always kind of come back to is it makes sense. And they do need to shoot threes, and that's how they're going to be successful, but they have to do it a different way, and they have to do it by those guys being aggressive and attacking the defense. So they've kind of gotten away from that, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of offensive physicality, John. You got to be setting great screens. You got to be getting into the post area, and that's where it gets difficult with Jaylen, because I hear it from the fan base right now. They want to blame him for the discontent. They want to blame him for sounding off here and not playing as well this season. But is he wrong that he's been the tone setter in the past and that he's the guy who does put them in those positions and does a lot of the stuff that we're looking for here? And, whether that was good for the team or not that he sounded off about that, that's how he feels. And I don't think he's completely wrong about it. So they're in a tough spot right now, right? Because so much of what they did last year isn't working right now. The coach doesn't want to go away from much of it. The players don't seem to feel a huge sense of urgency because of what they did last year. And there's a belief, I understandably, in last year's success here. But it feels like they need to adjust. And I'll still give Joe credit for switching up the rotation. I do think that was the right move. I don't think that was the issue here tonight. I just don't understand how it's seemingly, and I don't know if you feel this way, Noah, but I do feel this way watching it, that it's like, oh, we're force feeding this guy here. All right, let him go to work, and we're just going to stand there and watch. And there's not going to be much activity. There's not going to be much physicality. The offensive rebounding is something that's frustrated Mazzulla all year. I don't think we saw any of it here tonight, even with a lot of misses. So there's just some fracturing going on within this team, and not from an interpersonality standpoint, but just from the way that they're playing. They're not as locked into what they need to do on both ends as they were a year ago. And you see some of the frustration from Joe. You know what I do wish I asked him? There was a moment coming off the floor in the third quarter. I don't know if it was on the broadcast, John, but Joe usually just goes right to his coach's huddle into timeout. But he really got into Tatum a little bit on something. They were going back and forth a little bit. Tatum was kind of saying his piece. Joe was really emphasizing something there. And I think you're seeing more moments like that along the sideline from Joe here. And there is a greater sense of urgency from Joe along the sideline with the timeouts, with some hands-on coaching there. But I just wish we were seeing more activity on offense, certainly more physicality on offense, and more just movement and passing and flow in this offense. So obviously what made them great last year, Noah, was their ability to just be super unselfish, find the right guy, and continue to move the ball at a high level. And we're just not seeing that going on a month here.
Yeah, I think you're right about all that. I do feel like there's just a lot of standing around on offense that is a little bit inexplicable, and I don't know. I feel like that was a really strange moment, not strange, but it was a little bit unusual to see Joe and Tatum talk so, I don't know, emphatically right in the timeout break where he normally wouldn't address the team. And I don't really know. I think that was defensive stuff because Tatum had just hit 2 threes and given up a couple of easy baskets as well.
Yeah, it was weird for that. I thought it was barking encouragement. I couldn't quite tell.
Yeah, it's possible, but I think it was one of those glimpses, and we were getting more of them, like Bobby said, where, you know, Joe's not saying anything to us negative about Tatum, about Brown, about the team, but it's very possible that he is chewing them out behind closed doors. Like, I actually would be fascinated to have a little bit more insight on that. And we'll probably won't have it until Joe's not coaching in Boston anymore. Maybe the stories will come out then. But I do think there are tougher conversations being had behind the scenes than the conversations that we're seeing.
Yeah. There have to be. There goes Noah's really sticking and moving tonight. She's been they're having a tough time figuring out where they can and can't be there at the arena. So we'll get Noah back in a little bit. And we're also going to hear. Oh, is that what's going on?
Yep.
Want to make sure stealing envelopes. She's in a sensitive location. We're going to hear from Kristaps Porzingis, who amazingly is not super worried about this little stretch that they're on. And again, they did win back-to-back games. And what's so funny, Bobby, is they're going to probably go 3-4 on this trip, playing a couple of really depleted teams. And everyone at home is going to be like, 3 out of 4 is pretty good. And that was what happened on the last West Coast trip. I'm like, you can say that, but I'm not super impressed, nor do I feel better about them coming off of this one. You know, I
feel like we were in a similar spot last week where they escaped that Pelicans game in similar fashion to how they escaped that Clippers game yesterday. And we were like, oh, all right, you know, passing grade, you got out of it. And then they go against the team the next game and just get completely wiped out. Here's what's frustrating me a little bit, John. It's like we're not allowed to just react to what we're watching night in and night out. We're 40-something games into the season. They're not one of the best teams in the league, pretty clearly to me, just watching them night in and night out. Their inconsistencies pretty consistent at this point. We're talking 20 games, 10-10 here, and that's a quarter of the season. And everyone I talk to nationally, everyone I just kind of poke around with about this team, they're just like, yeah, they'll be fine. And I'm like, really? I actually I love his analysis, and I got to watch the game with him tonight. I was really curious to hear what he thought. Ryan Russillo was sitting next to me here tonight from the Ringer, and you know, we're watching the beginning of the game, and I'm just like, oh, what do you think of the Celtics? And he's like, they're missing a lot of shots this year. Like, that's, you know, he felt like that was going to come around. And then fourth quarter, they're down 20 or whatever, and I was like, this is a weird game. Like, I do feel like the shooting was kind of off here for a lot of this one. That was a big part of it. And he was just like, nope, that was really bad. Like, he didn't mince any words at the end of it after saying that it was a lot of shooting stuff at the beginning of this here. And that's kind of where we're at, right, John? The shooting's a big part of this. If they get blazing hot at some point here, they could go on a run for 2 weeks or a month. But it's just not happening. And so there's got to be something deeper here that's not going right in terms of their process. And I know Joe keeps saying that the process is right. I don't feel like we're watching that now at this point. It feels like it's going in the other direction. That's why we haven't played KP, right? He feels like it's getting better.
Yeah.
I didn't
All right,
understand that.
Yeah, I don't get that either, because now he's kind of going in and out. He was really bummed out a few games ago, I think, after maybe the Sacramento loss or one of those losses. And then he's fine again. So we'll hear from KP. Real quick, we want to give you one more shout out, one of our sponsors for Game Time.
This episode is also powered by Game Time, the best place to get tickets to the games, events, and concerts you want to see. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Game Time is filled with terrific features like all-in pricing, so you know exactly how much you're paying. No surprise fees at checkout. You also get panoramic views from your seats in the app, so you know exactly what you'll be looking at before you buy. Plus a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Once again, download that Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. What time is it? It's game time.
And again, here it is. If you want to check it out, Celtics return home on Monday. They got the Dallas Mavericks in a NBA Finals rematch on Saturday, and then they're back again home to take on Houston. And here's what we're looking at as far as that game is concerned. Still plenty of seats available and game place. You can get in for as little as 62. Great load seat here for 194. That is a super deal. So check it out, as it says here on the screen. All you have to do is download that app for a first-time user. Use that code CLNS and you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. So let's hear from Kristaps Porzingis. He is not super worried. And maybe it's because partially he feels he's playing better. And he's feeling good and he's vibing a little bit and he has faith in his guys. But he does not seem super concerned. Actually thinks that they're turning a corner.
They had a really good first half. They were really, really efficient. And we didn't have our best game, to put it in simple words. Played a little bit low energy maybe also first half. Second half I felt like we came out better, but they already had a good deficit and a good lead. And there was, I think it was one good moment we had. We kind of were making it back. I think we could have made it to 7 or 9. We missed the free throws, and then again they went on a little run and it kind of slipped out of our hands. So it was not a good night for them. It was a good night for them. It was not correct.
What do you feel like this seems to keep happening? The next cycle for you guys. Does it feel like related to some of the other losses that you've had recently?
Honestly, I think we're starting to play better, but we just didn't have a good night tonight, and we had a back-to-back. That has to go into the equation. Yeah. So that's honestly what it is, a little bit. But to be honest, I feel like we are starting to play better, and I think we'll be fine.
So, I mean, I don't love it. Like, I guess
when did they play better? I guess the Warriors game.
Yeah, I know. I guess you get to come out flat, but it's still not great. It's still not great, but I don't know. I mean, look, you look around the room, you won a championship with these guys. It's hard to not have faith that they'll turn it around. I don't know if it's based in anything that he's actually seeing right now. I think he's just, well, we're the champs and look at it. We've got the same guys here. We'll be fine.
So the thing is, no, I don't think they lacked.
What's Noah?
I don't think they lacked energy from that Toronto game, like to compare it to when he made those comments after that.
No, different. No.
Yeah, that was the only game this season that Porzingis has been expressively disappointed, frustrated, was the Toronto game. And again, that was the only game that I felt like kind of like, what the hell did we just watch? Being there tonight, like it did feel like they were trying. I have to say, like, just to be fair, like I had a completely different angle than I normally have, just sitting baseline. And that angle makes you realize how difficult this game is, like how every rebound is so contested, how every how much contact there is on every drive that doesn't get called. So it was, for me, it's hard to even compare because it was such a different perspective of the game that I normally get. But the reality is that they haven't had multiple games where they have good ball movement and they're passing the ball, crisp passes, and like you're seeing the machine work and you're seeing connectivity on the defensive end. Like I want like 2 games of that in a row where you see both of those things. That's it.
It doesn't look like Celtics. When they win, you're like, well, they won, but it still doesn't look right. Golden State notwithstanding, the shots fell there and that steamrolled early and Golden State was a mess. But yeah, you're not seeing it consistently. I mean, look at this, Noah, back-to-back games in LA. These are 2 dog shit performances. They are. I mean, I'm sorry. Like yesterday against the first team, I don't care what Joe says, going out there and, why would you say this should be easy? Because they're out 4 starters, dude.
Sick of, yeah.
Like I'm so tired of that. Why it should be easy? Yeah, we know they're in.
They got the Lakers' best shot tonight, John.
They're missing 4 starters, so don't tell me that should. Yes, it should have been easy, even though you were down a couple of your key players. And yeah, you got the best shot from someone. Oh my God! Like I'm really bored with those answers. I hope, as you said, Noah, that's the front-facing stuff. We'll go out there and we'll tell them everything's fine and we're not worried. And behind the scenes, they're pissed off and they're worried and they're addressing it. I would hate to think that they're going back there and just like, we're fine, man. We'll be fine. That's not great. Speaking of not great or not fine, Jaylen Brown, who I guess you guys were told wasn't going to talk. This, in addition to the rotational issues, he's battling a health thing where his ankle's not feeling great. He says he tweaked it recently and asked about it here. I'm all right. Still trying to get my burst and explosion back. I didn't finish a lot of baskets around the rim because it's messing with me. So, okay. Okay. So, I mean, what do we do with that? Then don't set the tone. Why don't you volunteer to not set the tone then if you're not going to be okay? I can't. My ankle's not going to allow me to explode and get to the rim and with the type of aggression and ferocity I'm normal with. But I also want to play the whole first quarter and set the tone. You just got to pick one. Which one do you want to be? You're either not physically capable of being the toner or you are, and you're going to be that. I'm really just
John, to be fair, the tone setting comments were after the Golden State game. He sprained the ankle last night against the Clippers.
No. I know. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in general. Okay, Jaylen, we'll fix it. We'll flop it. We'll flip the rotations for you. And now it's, I can't really do this now because of my ankle. All right. So we'll wait then. Okay. We'll keep doing what we're doing. Keep giving you the ball in the first quarter. And when you're better, hopefully the results will come in. Like it just, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not loving it.
I don't get it. Yeah. And again, I think some of his gripes are legitimate, but they're not needed right now. And that's a tough part, right? Because this stuff isn't helping them. And there's got to be collective movement toward where they're trying to get to. And I think this stuff puts them further away. And I know he's hurt. Everyone's hurt.
What's Bobby?
That there's just always got to be some, not excuse, but just something that's got to... Yeah, this is an excuse, but then he needs the accommodation with the minutes and the rotation. And I struggle to understand it. I'm right here with John. I'm like, they gave you what you wanted. And so I don't understand why it's not fine now. I just don't.
It's not fine now? I don't get why we turned this whole rotation thing into this, like, Jaylen threw a fit and then they gave him what he wanted. Throw a fit. Why is he not happy?
He didn't throw a fit.
They tweaked something. He was playing the first 6. Now he's playing the first 9. This is all about a 3-minute stint in the first quarter that I think has benefited the team. They didn't play well tonight. But why are we acting like? I'm just confused why there's we can agree that the Celtics are not playing well. We can agree that Jaylen has not been playing well. We can agree that Tatum did not have an assertive night. The guards have been off their game. But I don't understand why we're equating those comments from 3 games back about feeling like that sub pattern was challenging for him to like anything to do with these struggles. Like
Well,
where are we? I don't.
Well, where I'm equating it is here, that we're not saying it's a fit. He's not throwing a tantrum per se, but he's clearly bothered and off, and it's visible to anybody with eyes. And he's walking around on defense, and he's not playing in an engaged way, and he's taking entire stretches of time off when he's on the floor, and it's been this way for a bit. So then you have to go out and address the issue and do something simply to placate a single person when first quarter wasn't really the issue hounding the team. And now we've got more excuses about why the performance isn't there. Maybe you're just playing bad right now. And why don't you worry about just playing better than what the circumstances around it, whether it's best team, whether it's tweaking a little something, whether it's that, just get there. Like there's valid reasons for everything. And there's probably valid reasons for why a lot of people are struggling. Back-to-backs, banged up a little bit. Maybe their roles have changed a tad. Maybe they're reintegrating Porzingis into the lineup and they've gotten funky with the starters. A lot of different reasons. It's all there. But ultimately, you can only control what you can control. And that's playing better, being engaged, trying all the time, playing defense, not falling asleep, not getting backdoored, not standing around when people are grabbing rebounds, not pointing at someone to get to your defensive assignment because you don't feel like closing out. Jalen's been doing a lot of that, and he's been getting a free pass for a lot of it. So I think like frustration's bubbling a little bit, and you see it with some people who are kind of like, all right, man, what do you want now? What is it now? Just play better. It's 40 games into the year and you're shooting 30%. Like just play better. You know, you're supposed to be better than this. You're the finals MVP. The entire world has, lifted Jaylen into a stratosphere right now that he doesn't belong in. He's considered among the 15 best players in the world heading into this year. He's not playing.
I'll go a step further, John.
So just play better, I think. Yeah.
He shouldn't go to the All-Star game.
He
that's where we're at.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I'm trying to find the right way to say it, Noah. But my point generally is that when he's not playing well this season, there always seems to be some explanation or reason or something that needs to change about why, instead of just we got to play or I got to play better. In fact, you know what he did after the Clippers game, John? You weren't did the sound, I don't think, or we didn't play that clip. He said we turned the ball over late in that game. Who turned the ball over?
Sure, but again, like I said, there's a bit of that going around. It's just right now where it looks like you've got a disconnect is what's going on with Jaylen and Jason and how it's running and who's getting the ball and who's initiating what and who's playing with whom and who is playing when. And I would rather everybody shut up and just play better across the board. I'm not making it a Jaylen Brown issue. Jaylen Brown is making it a Jaylen Brown issue by just these little subtle, as we said, Noah, dropping these breadcrumbs about things that are going on there. But I'm going back at the other people.
John,
too.
if someone asks a player about their health and he has an ankle sprain,
I'll answer it. Yeah, I'll answer it. Go ahead. Yes, ask me a question about my health, because everybody does this. The answer is it's nothing. We're all bad. Deal with this stuff. It's not a big deal. Next question.
But this is why we like talking to Jaylen, because he'll actually say if he's dealing with something. Like,
that's
I
not
can't
honest.
get a read on. Why? What do you mean?
That's not honest. That's it.
Hauser's back could be shot this year, and we don't know because he says it's great, which is fine.
Yeah.
And that's the PR.
Because Hauser's doing what John wants to hear him do.
Sure, but Jalen's different. He's always been answering questions.
But honestly. Is that honest? But that's the thing is, I'll ask you this, Noah. Is it honest, or he wants the information out there because he wants you to think that there's a reason behind it, whereas someone else doesn't want you to think that? Is Jaylen Brown's ankle a bigger issue than any other injury any person is dealing with right now that they're not using as an excuse for their poor play? Is Holiday talking about his shoulder or Derek White about whatever's ailing him? I find it insane. Like, it's hijacking other people's right and ability to potentially give excuses for their play. You're the only one in the world that has an excuse for what's going on. I'm not playing the minutes. My role is different on this team. It's the same team. You're the same guy. And who else is saying that? Is he the only person who might not currently be happy about what's going on and might have things that are going on with the team or with their body that's affecting their play? He might have the fifth, most significant issue out there right now, but he's the one talking about it. That's almost unfair to the rest of the team. It's not honesty. You're kind of hijacking their ability to make excuses for themselves because you're making them for yourself. And everyone's going to be like, well, I don't think that's honesty. I don't think that that's refreshing. I think it's, I want you to know this, and this is what I'm telling you, because I want this to be the narrative you create around me.
Yeah.
So
And
that's what, but I don't like that at all. I don't like that. I don't.
No, and I agree with you. No, I think
Yeah.
I think the change needed to be made to go back to the rotation thing. I think
I
it
don't
was
care about the
beneficial.
rotation.
Right. But I do think
I
it's
don't think-
related.
Guys,
I do think it's related.
Truth. It's just what he wants to say now. We don't know Jaylen's ankle is any more hurt than any other ailment any other player is dealing with right now. We don't know that. We just know that he wants to tell you that tonight he didn't have explosion because of his ankle right now. That's it. It's fine. It's fine. The answer is I was healthy enough to be out there. I got to play better. That's it. That's it. We're all dealing with stuff right now. Because that's it. That is it. That's why it's the NBA. You're 45 games into the season. You think everybody's 100% healthy, and it gets worse and worse as time goes on. Everyone's dealing with something at some point.
Yeah.
I'm not
and
going to be
I-
on the minority on this one. That's fine. I'm
Yeah.
always going to have this stance. We could probably have this conversation after every media availability. I think we want to encourage the players to be honest with us so we can get a full story. We can get a full picture. There's always going to be an element of the PR stuff that they're going to dodge questions. But I like talking. I like that Jaylen will say if I have an ankle thing. We were talking today. Is Derek's foot an issue? I don't know. We don't ever really know how these guys are doing. Porzingis is the only one that really gives us a percent. He'll say I'm at 80%, I'm at 70%. That's all fine. When Porzingis does it, it's cool, right? It's cool that he's so candid with the media. I don't know. I get it. I get the idea of he should just be saying I'm perfect, everything's good. My health is not an excuse. There is a textbook, and Jason Tatum has played out that textbook, and it's why he is who he is. It's why he has the jersey sales and the endorsements. He knows how to conduct himself. He has the best team around him, all that stuff. He's on Jimmy Kimmel. I get it, but I think it's okay that Jaylen has a different personality. He's had it his entire career, and he's gonna say the truth when he's asked questions. And if we don't want to ask him, I just feel like I have to be, as the person who's in the room asking questions, I feel like we have to contextualize when we ask the questions when they talk about something. This came up last night about the fact that they keep talking about how everybody's hunting them. We keep asking them every single day. Another national reporter comes in and is like, you guys are being hunted, right? Everybody's playing differently with you guys. And they're like, sure. So I just feel like, we're asking these guys about their health. Some guys are going to choose to always make it sound like they're perfect. Some guys are going to be candid.
Forget. You're not wrong, Noah. In a straight up, you ask somebody, you want to hear the truth. What I'm saying is, I don't know that he's any more hurt than anyone else. He's just the only person that wants to talk about it. So again, let's remove athletes from this and let's remove a locker room situation. Let's just say in general, everything that you do in life should be with the idea that you're going to try to get the desired result you want out of it. Okay. So the desired result is for us to talk injury as an excuse. So if you don't want that to be the desired result, you don't say it. If you do, you do. So he's very much saying it because he wants you to know it. And if other people are not saying it because they don't want to use it as an excuse, it's not refreshing that someone is saying it and someone is not. The other person just simply doesn't want to use that as a reason or an excuse for why they're playing
undermine
poorly.
The other guys. I agree.
Because
John.
it undermines other people who also might be dealing with it. So I find it the complete opposite of refreshing, especially if there's other people out there dealing with stuff that are, whether you're asked or not, we're all dealing with something. That's not an excuse. I got to play better. That's what you say because you don't want to undermine your teammates. I personally don't find it refreshing or honest. I find refreshing and honesty saying, We right now collectively are a mess. We're not playing well at all. We're not moving the ball. I'm not doing that's honesty. I'm not doing that. I was coasting tonight. I fell asleep on defense 4 times. That's honesty. That's self-reflection. That's introspection. That's looking at what you're doing and being honest about. My head wasn't into tonight's game. That's a refreshing, honest answer. This I view as an excuse. So there's a distinction there on that stuff.
And
something
I
else
do-
is the reason why. You're not the reason why.
I do relate it to the rotation stuff too, John, because it's like, give me more. I'm the tone setter. Let me do this. And then it's, oop, I was hurt. I do think that kind of connects because even I just, I struggle to understand it. I really do. And I'm a Jaylen guy. You know that, John. We agree about we disagree about the
I've said
Jaylen
this a
stuff
million
lot
times
here,
before. If I were a media coach, which I would love to be, by the way, I would urge all of these guys, don't say it. They're going to say it for you. The reporters are going to say it for you. I guarantee right now, people, because we're wondering, there's got to be something with Holiday, right? It's got to be something with White. That thing's definitely bothering him. He doesn't look right now. Let the people say it for you. That's more effective than going out there and saying it yourself, because then, as I said, all of the other things there, I don't think that that's an effective way to communicate what's going on. That I think he knows what he's doing there, and he's dropping these breadcrumbs because he wants that to be the conversation that we're having about him. His role is different. He's trying to adjust. Things are tough to get into. The ankle's not 100% there. These are things he wants us to say. I'm saying don't say it. If you don't say it, everyone else will say it for you. That's almost always how it works. It's not the ultimate problem what's going on right now, but again, there's definitely a Jaylen problem with him not playing up to his standard right now. That's the bigger issue. What he says doesn't matter as much, but you start to wonder, is he unhappy? Is there an issue? Is there anything more going on? That's what I'm interested or curious about. Is something bugging these guys beyond, are people unhappy in what's going on with each other, with their roles, with Joe? That's what I can't figure out. If I want honesty, I want it on that. Like, are you guys all right? Like, because I don't know right now, because they don't look all right.
They don't look like it.
Yeah,
they don't.
Do you want it from Joe though? Like, you want Joe to say we're having issues in the locker room?
No,
we're not trying.
I don't want it. I want to know it, but I think that if he went out there and said it, I don't think that's advantageous for him.
So do you do you like how Joe handles the adversity? Like how he kind of denies everything, makes everything sound rosy. Like, do you like that?
Honestly, we've talked about it a million times. I think it's hilarious. It only bothers me if he takes it back into the locker room and says to those guys, "It's okay, guys, everybody's good." Right. If he's going and ripping them, I'm 100% fine with that. I laugh at the Joe stuff. Bobby gets really annoyed. I think it's hilarious. I don't think what he says matters at all. I think it's.
I laughed at the plane ride. I thought the plane ride thing was funny.
Yeah. So but as I said, I'm curious what more is happening behind the scenes there, and if there's anything going on there.
And maybe there isn't, but this doesn't.
But I don't like the gaslighting. I don't like the excuses. I don't like the other team's best shot. I don't like the multiple games. I don't like. We killed those guys for the friggin' traffic comment a couple of years ago. Like, I mean, enough.
Jaylen said it again in San Francisco. He was like, long plane ride out here. Tough turnaround. There's just a string of, and again, I hate to say excuse making because it's a loaded word, but it is what it is, John, right? Like, who cares about the rotation? Who cares about the ankle or the plane ride or the traffic? Can you pass between each other? Like that.
Yeah.
Can you run some actions? Like, there's just a staleness to us on the floor, and I've killed the coaching staff for it in part, but Noah's right. It is on the players. Like, they know what they need to do. They know the reads. They know what worked last year, and it just seems to be breaking down a little bit right now. And I do hate to hear after a game like this, we're playing better, we'll be fine, because that's not what I'm watching right now. And if I'm wrong, I'll sit here and do the biggest apology cam at the end of the year that you've ever seen, and I don't know, retire or something. But what I'm watching in front of me right now,
I still think it's possible. I'm like, I 100% think that all of this
they could peak at the right time
at any point in time.
But you know what, John? What's not going to work is doing this up until April 15th, and then on April 17th saying, "Here we go." Oop.
But
Here we
if
go.
all of a sudden they went through a 20-game stretch where they just started steamrolling people and looking
Yeah,
like
no, that's
themselves,
possible.
it wouldn't surprise me in the least. I'm just saying currently it looks like something's awful. So I guess what time is it now? Where are we on this right now, guys? Where are we on the panic meter? Noah, I'll start with you.
I'll be Bobby.
You're Bobby now?
Mm-hmm.
Elaborate. How did you go from Noah to Bobby, or have you been Bobby?
I mean, I don't really resonate with the concept of panic, but I think what we're talking about is are they going to repeat? And I think that this stretch of basketball has been inconsistent for long enough to me that it doesn't feel like just a week or 2 or 3 weeks. Like it's really been like a very decent portion of the season. And so to me, that's indicative of like larger picture things that are worth when you're projecting. Like if I was betting about whether this team's going to repeat, like these past 2 months have certainly impacted my viewpoint. And like you guys said, like anything can happen. They can still turn it around and peak at the right time. But the fact that they haven't been able to just kind of like push out of the slump and string together like a couple good weeks in a row, it does stand out.
And it's only panic meter in the same way like a doomsday clock. It's only doomsday when it strikes midnight. Like it's only panic when you get all the way to the end. What's left of Jimmy is concern, and all the way over there is mild concern to no concern. So you're mildly concerned.
Mildly
concerned. Is that what you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I think the big thing for me is the backcourt, because like that is ultimately the backcourt is what made this team from a playoff team to the champions last year. Like I do think Brown was great in the finals. Tatum was great in a couple of those games. Throughout the playoffs, they each had their moments, but it was the X factor to me was Derek and Drew, and like especially Drew. Like nobody knew what to expect from him in that playoff run, and he came out huge in so many moments. And I worry that they're not going to be able to recreate that because we just haven't really seen it this season. So I'm thinking like big picture things, guys that just haven't performed at the level that they did last year. It is concerning, yeah. So I think they're still in good place. They still have the third best record in the league. They've still had, they haven't ever hit a skid where they're losing 3-4 games and you're like, oh my God, but it's just not consistent. And to win a championship, you have to have a really special season. And I'm not seeing enough indicators of that special season right now.
Did you just talk your way from Bobby to Jimmy?
No, I'm Bobby. I'm just explaining why I moved from me to Bobby.
All right, that's fine. Bobby, where are you?
Yeah, I've been in the Jimmy range for a while.
Yeah, I think I've moved from Bobby Jimmy to Jimmy right now. I no longer think it's the thing I said at the top of the show, Noah. The thing that's
John?
No, not even close. The thing, because they're still, as Noah said, the third best team in the league, playing, in my estimation, horribly relative to their capabilities and their standards. And I still have a ton of faith. If we're going to put in as a big part of the problem right now, the backcourt's not playing great. I have a ton of faith in Holiday and White. What's funny is I put it always on the Stars to, take over, but I also don't have faith in the Stars to do that. And I really do think, and this is a backhanded compliment to those guys, but I think the reason Brown and Tatum played at the level they played at last year is because of White and Holiday and the adults in the room and those guys who kind of pulled them and didn't allow them to slip in, to their bad habits, and kind of kept everything together. And I felt like they could snap out of stuff all the time, or people could go cold and someone else could kind of take over, and the defense was always there and everything was on point. And those guys are a little bit off right now. And I think, Tatum and Brown, I don't know that they win a championship if you don't get Derek White playing at the level he played at last year. And if Drew Holiday doesn't come in and do all of the Drew Holiday things that he does that don't always show up in stat sheets. And right now those guys aren't doing those things. And you're back to kind of Tatum and Brown on an island playing your ball, my ball, and it's not always working. So I don't love that. So if those guys get it back, and I don't have any reason to believe they can't or won't, then I do think other things will start to fall in line, which is why I'm not all the way over pinned on the panic side. But again, the worst thing about this and the scariest thing is it's not championship. Like, the worst thing would be if it's not championship hangover and it's not a decision to not play great and they're just coasting until they get to the playoffs or games that matter. The worst thing would be is if they're just worse across the board. And that it's not coming back
increasingly.
And if that's coming into play because Holiday, Holiday is reaching that cliff and you never know when you go off it and he's not going to get it back, or if injuries have slowed people to the point that they're not going to be, the best version of themselves, then yeah, you've got a problem. And they could fizzle. So I'm not there yet, but I'm still somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, for me, it's the defense. Like all year I've been asking, why can't you just rely on that to get through some of these games? And I don't see the resistance level. I don't see it looking difficult enough for opponents. There's times where this team, though, last year, it looked like out of this world on defense. And I can't even remember the last time this season that they looked like that. For a lot of the year, they haven't. I don't think they've looked like themselves consistently since December 15th, that last trip to DC. Then you lose to the Bulls after. You lose to the Magic without Tatum. Lose on Christmas. Lose that awful game of the Pacers. They got going on a nice 3-game stretch after that. But honestly, ever since that Thunder game knocked them back on their heels, it's been pretty bad. It could be even worse if you blew those Pelicans and Clippers games the last couple games here. So they're almost lucky they are where they are because they've played badly enough in a couple other games to lose. And it's tough to watch right now. They're not an enjoyable watch either.
I want to address this comment, Andrew, real quick, because you've been poking at me for a little bit here. This is actually pretty easy to understand. It should be on the Stars, but I don't think they can do it. And so I'm going to put it back on White and Holiday. Got it? Okay, great. Because that's what I think it is. It should be on the Stars to be able to elevate and lift you, but they can't and they won't. And I don't think they will. I think those guys have to find a way to improve. I do wonder if what's going on right now with the type of offense that they're running through those guys is taking them out of the game, or whether it's something that Holiday and White are dealing with on their own, whether it's just a slump or injury or whatever. But yes, I don't think Jaylen and Jason just on their own are going to be able to turn it around and lift this team. They should be able to, but I don't think they're going to. And that's why I also said I don't think that they would have won the championship without those guys last year. So just to clarify that point, go ahead, Noah.
I don't even remember what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank, a rare blank. I guess to me, the challenging thing is that to be a championship team and a real contender, like, one of the 2-3 teams that has a real chance, you have to be at an intersection of a lot of different things from an ego standpoint, from a timing standpoint. I felt like last year they kind of hit all of those points. Like Brown was kind of on a redemption tour from the previous year. Tatum realized he's not going to get MVP. He just wants to win a championship. He needs a championship so bad. Drew came in and had like this sense of leadership and calm, and like all these different pieces just hit at the right time. And I asked Joe about it like a bunch of times last year about like, why is this team so selfless? Why is this, why is this working so well? And he was like, sometimes it's just about like where each person is in their career, and it all intersecting at the right time. And part of what Brad was saying this year about coming to, this season and just because you're bringing the same guys, it doesn't mean that everything's going to work out the same, is that I think everybody's in a different place now that the championship was won.
Yeah.
And so there's elements of like, maybe you're in a more complacent space. Maybe you didn't work as hard in the offseason. Like, and it's all speculation. So I can't say like, oh, this is what I think it is, but that recipe, like that intersection of where everybody landed last year, it doesn't feel like that's where everybody is this year, whether it's Tatum wanting to come out and prove himself more, whether it's Brown feeling more.
Yeah.
And what those reasons are, I don't know. If Derek, if they signed, everybody signed their contracts, they feel more complacent. Like, I don't know, but you can feel that it's not the same connection
at all. It's a great point. And a great example, Malcolm Brogdon. You go back a couple of years ago, Malcolm Brogdon came in, was perfect, right? Before he got injured and they lose in those conference finals to Miami. Exactly what the team needed. Veteran presence, not a perfect player, obviously not terrific defensively, but boy, did he help that second unit bench scoring, and he was a third player who could create his own shot that they desperately needed because they didn't have it on the team. he was super, super important, took a back seat at that point to Marcus Smart and Derek White. He'd been a starter his entire life and was fine in that 6-man role. So it was fine because that's what was needed, and he thought this team was headed for a championship. But it became increasingly clear as the year went on, he wasn't super fine, and he really wanted more, but he shut up and did his job, and it got them where they wanted to. You look at a person like Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is a second option on teams. You know, he's a Olympian. He's an all-star, and he's coming in here and he's told, well, you're number 5 on this team offensively. Is that cool? And he's like, all right, cool. Let's go win a chip. Derek White ascends last year to the point that he's in an all-star conversation this year. So this year he might be thinking, I'm making that leap. I might get there. Jaylen Brown talked about sacrifice last year, all the sacrifice. He took 1 less shot per game, but his points per game came down. He had the best year of his career. He falls off. He was second team All-NBA. He falls out of All-NBA. He might be thinking, well, I want to get back to All-NBA because I'm Jaylen friggin' Brown. And then Tatum might be thinking, well, we're the best team in the league. Maybe I should be MVP this year because I'm the best player on the best team. And that's how it works, right? So everyone could come back with a little bit of a personal agenda that doesn't necessarily jive with what everyone else needs to do or should do if you were truly sacrificing and trying to put it all out there. Plus well, if that guy's not trying, I'm not going to try tonight sort of thing. So those types of vibes surrounding this team right now, and it's not like deep, heavy basketball analysis, but it is very classic human nature, as you pointed out, Noah. Like, just because you did it last year, everyone's not coming back in the same exact place that they were the year before. And that's what it kind of looks and feels like, which is why, again, that panic meter is ticking a little bit over there.
Yeah, and I think part of it is also that, say, like, and again, speculation, say the issue that came back this year is that multiple people didn't work as hard in the offseason because they were out celebrating the championship. And they came back and they weren't in good rhythm to start the year. Now that machine that was so perfectly aligned, like something's off. Now somebody else is trying to overcompensate for that. And now the thing that was working last year isn't working as well. And now you're having to run something different or feel like you no longer have trust in the thing that was working previously. So I think there's just a ripple effect, and it's hard to pinpoint like what exactly started the issue. But I do know that you're seeing a lot of times like certain possessions where they just feel like panic. They feel like frenzied, like, you know, we're not going to do everybody touches the ball, get a really good shot. It's like, we're down by 12. Like we just lost the last game. Like there's a sense of that you're speeding things up. And the hard part is figuring out what the root cause of it is. And I know that's part of that's our job and figuring it out and trying to read between the lines. But what we're seeing is very obvious. And it's that it's just out of whack. And I thought by now that it would be fixed. And I'm a little surprised that you're still seeing these games every other night, that it's just not the case. And I think when we talk to guys like Drew Holiday has been one that's really, he's been pretty consistent with us. He's like, I don't know what's wrong. And like, sometimes it just happens. And like, he's just frustrated talking to me. I don't think he enjoys it very much. And I get his perspective as well. Everybody has their thing. And that's part of why it just doesn't resonate for me to like pick apart, like, what did he say? Because everybody just has their way that they talk to us. And I don't really, it's hard to make much of any of it. And we can do our best, right? That's our job. But it's just hard because like Drew's thing is always, I don't know. I just don't know, right? And like you can't really say the wrong thing.
Yeah, you don't know. And even if that is, even if all of that is it, they'll never say it because no one's going to be like, yeah, I got selfish this year and that's why I didn't play team ball as much. It just, but like Peyton Pritchard's another example. Now he's 6th man of the year, so he's got to go out there and get his too. We've said this, Brad said this about the trade deadline, and other people have said it too. Too careful. You always talk about Celtics at the end of the year. Remember, it was with Pirtle or someone like that, Bobby, right? We're talking about bringing in Jakob Pirtle, and the idea that he was going to be the 3rd center on this team. You're not bringing in a guy who's entering free agency to be the 3rd center and play 12 minutes a game on a team here when he's used to playing 32 minutes a night and wants to be the man and go get paid. That doesn't work. You can't bring in somebody who needs 20, 30 minutes a game on a team that needs somebody to play 10 or 12. Now you've got all of these people who not only need minutes, they need the ball, they need touches, they need lots of things to feel like they're being fully utilized. And that's the thing we talked about is when you're winning, it's so easy to sacrifice. When it's not going great, it's easy to think, well, if, in Jaylen Brown's thing, well, if you let me kind of do my thing, I'd be able to get going better, and then we'd be better. It's not always selfish, but we could be winning more if you just let me do my thing, but I'm not able to do my thing right now because of X, Y, and Z. There could be a bit of that right now, which isn't straight selfish. It's just I'm really good at basketball, and I don't feel like I'm being utilized to my full potential. And you wonder if there's that feeling. And then when you see people sulking or walking around to this and that, there could be a disconnect that's coming on there, a little bit. So again, it's speculative, but it does feel off. So you have to start reaching beyond schematic
thing
stuff
we know, the
or anything
rotation
else. It's
thing.
the same team running the same type of offense. Yeah, sure.
I do think the other thing, and this is like my number one frustration with covering an NBA team, is how little access we have to the assistants and to understanding who does what. But they're down Charles Lee. He was their lead assistant. We saw Jeff Van Gundy last night. I don't know exactly to what extent he was impactful, but it's not the same bench that's there. And for all we know, Charles Lee was hugely important in making him feel comfortable because he was the Bucks guy and they had that relationship going into the season. Like it could be something like that as well. It could just be like everybody's a year older, and that little difference of like Drew and Al losing a step was enough to throw things out of whack. And so it's just tough because we don't really know what it could be, but I think that it's easy to gravitate towards the Jaylen Jason storyline because it's very visible. They've never really played well together. They've never really been best friends, even though everybody wants them to be. And so it's just easy to gravitate towards that. And for me,
I think we see it playing out in the court. And it's not just them; it's Porzingis too. Yeah, but right now the passings and all-time low for this season. The passing between them's at a low. Like there is stuff for watching that's happening. I think was visible here tonight, as much as this was the 5th game in 7 days thing, which I think explains some of the defensive issues we saw. The offensive stuff, I think, is going in every game, John. It's like, all right, who's going to be attacking the matchup? Who's going to be getting those first quarter shots and looks and that kind of stuff? And I do think that's leaving everybody else standing around. The ball is just not popping right now. And I don't know why.
And you don't know. And someone pointed it out. You go back to that Kyrie Irving, team his final year. Just too many guys who needed things that could not be provided with all of those players on the team. You reach a point where it isn't as easy to do it with the same exact personnel, even though on paper you should be able to. And it is perplexing because at home you're looking at the same exact team, plus Peyton Pritchard playing better, it's like, the conversations we're having at the beginning of the year, like, geez, there should be no reason why they can't steamroll. So it's weird to see it. Real quick, we want to throw this in there before we go. One piece of news, this happened before the game. Jason Tatum was named All-Star starter, which was expected here. It's his 3rd straight year as a starter, right? What I found, that's not surprising. What I found surprising is the Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, and Shaquille O'Neal all had Jaylen Brown as an all-star starter this year. Barkley even had Giannis on his bench, which is hilarious. Also, Barkley couldn't pronounce Adetokounmpo, and Shaq couldn't pronounce Nikola Jokic. He said called him Jokic, and Barkley didn't even come close to Adetokounmpo, which speaks to a larger issue that Noah and I have talked about how these guys are a problem right now in terms of these are the 2 best players in the league over the last 5 or 6 years, and you can't be bothered to pronounce their names. But also,
like 5 combined MVPs, right? Like
if you think Jaylen Brown is an all-star starter this year, and you think he's an all-star starter over Giannis Adetokounmpo, that also means you're not watching basketball games this year. And it's not a knock on Jaylen Brown, but this was some stupid people. So we are riding a little bit on last year's coattails with some of the stuff and the perception of things. I think Jaylen Brown's going to be an all-star, but I think he's going to largely be an all-star based on last year's accomplishments rather than what he's doing this year.
Yeah, I think, first of all, there's a long legacy in this league of being named an all-star because of things you did previously. So I don't
100%.
I think that he's kind of a no-brainer because of his accolade from last season, finals MVP, unless you were just a disaster the following year. I think if you maintain a similar level of production, and he hasn't been statistically too far off, I would be stunned if he wasn't an all-star starter. I don't know that there's any case for that. I didn't see the TNT coverage. I'm like kind of, it was one of the most mind-boggling things I've heard that 3 of them had him as a starter, because I don't know that that's just wild. But But yeah, he and they're still the number 2 team in the East too. So the default is for them to be.
You're going to get 2 guys, and it's got to be him.
New York has 2 starters, and they're the number 3 team. So, and it's not like the role players have been so exceptional this season that the starters haven't had much to do with it. The role players have been okay. So, I think he's a shoo-in, but on the bench.
Yeah.
I'm leaning no right now, but it could change.
You think they only need 1 All-Star?
It's just you got Cade, you got some of these other guys right now who are catching up on him. I need the full list in front of me here.
Yeah, I
know
don't believe the
East is thin.
2-starter thing. Look at those Milwaukee teams. Like Chris Middleton didn't deserve to be on an all-star team, but like they were getting a token one because Milwaukee would have the best team in the East. And I don't think that that's necessary. I don't think you have to. You could have an alpha and 5 other guys who are all equally good. But I do think I agree with you, Noah. Most people think like that, which is why I think 100% Jaylen Brown's going to make it because the Celtics are going to get 2. The Celtics are getting 2 players.
Yeah. I hope Cunningham makes it though.
And you've got like a Wagner injury and Banchero and guys like that who missed some action.
Those guys were out.
And other guys who've had better resumes this year
Butler.
who I just haven't had the amount of time. So yeah, no Butler, obviously, Hero's in there, but he's not getting in over JB. So I think he makes it as well. But I found the coverage, I found the TNT coverage super interesting.
Zach LaVine.
Again, he should be in the conversation, but I don't think he gets there.
Yeah, I mean, now you consider all the guys that are out of the mix. Jaylen probably gets in.
Yeah, he does. Anyway, we went long again, and thankfully this is the last West Coast show we'll have to do. I have to thank Bobby and Noah who are on the trip, and even though it is only 11:38 p.m. over there, they're working their butts off, and they're tired as hell, and they're off to Dallas next. So we will bid these guys adieu, and we will thank you guys here hanging out in the chat with us, watching the show. We do appreciate it. Again, we're undefeated, Bobby. It's a perfect record. We've never Garden Report, nor do we ever intend to. Okay, this is our promise to you. If they play, we're going to do something. We're going to be here, even if it's 2:30. Thankfully, it's not whatever time we finished last night, which was like 4. That was terrible. Final thoughts before we wrap it, guys, or just say goodnight?
I'm impressed by how many people are still on and active. I didn't realize. I'm assuming that it's people not in Boston. So maybe there are more West Coast listeners. But I just I'm impressed.
We've got some Australia.
There you go. So
last night's party was insane. I agree. Yeah.
But no other thoughts for me. I look forward to a new game. This was kind of a disappointing one. I was hoping to see like a thriller, LeBron, game winner attempt, something good. This was
bummer, right?
Yeah. So
Isn't
I was
that
just
a bummer?
a little bit bummed. Yeah. Last night's game was fun. I enjoyed the Jaden Springer show. I was hoping to see Springer with some rotation minutes when they needed some legs. He looked good in that 4th, 10 points. But yeah, no real thoughts here.
Yeah, it's that lost in this is no Laker talk at all. No Celtics Laker talk. Kind of a shame. It's almost embarrassing to go out there and be the Celtics and be the defending champs and get chumped like that by the Lakers. We didn't even talk about that. Like that's gross. For anybody who grew up caring about this kind of thing, that's terrible. Like it's the Lakers. You can't get up for this.
Yeah,
not great.
Max could not have been happy tonight.
Oh my God, I'm so glad Nick's not in here right now because he wouldn't know what to do between his LeBron hate and his Celtics Lakers.
JJ Redick coached a hell of a game.
He did. He knew exactly what. Yeah.
Now I was gonna say I think this is my first time seeing LeBron play in person because he's missed like every other game that I've covered, and seeing him play in person, especially from where we were sitting, was actually insane.
He was
like
flying.
He is stronger than anybody I've ever seen. Like the whole thing was just wild.
It's honestly, and again, Noah, if you go back to seeing him in his prime, again, prime LeBron, if he wanted to,
like in his prime in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously
he's
he wasn't
still like that,
but some of the post ups with Drew Holiday guarding him and Drew Holiday just getting discarded. It's like I've never seen anybody do that to Drew. So that was just from a basketball standpoint, it was pretty cool to see.
It's the most, I think it is So, in New England, this would be blasphemy comparing LeBron to Tom Brady in terms of being able to play at a certain age. The physical demands of playing in the NBA and the type of basketball game that LeBron James plays, and to be able to do what he does with these ridiculous, almost triple-double numbers at the age of 40 is far more impressive than anything that's ever been done by any at an advanced age in any sport, and it's not even close. So what he's doing now is amazing. And again, this is a guy who 15 years ago, 12 years ago, if he wanted to, and he decided, he woke up one year and he said, I'm going to average a triple double with 15 rebounds and 15 assists, he could have done it. If he decided he wanted 50 points a game for a season, he could have done it. An unstoppable force. And you still see it. The seas part when he's going. He's just his physical presence and his vision and everything that he does. He's unbelievable. So it's great. He's amazing. It's really impressive to see him in person. You talk about, Noah, you said it earlier, everything is hard, everything is contested. You're watching games, then you watch LeBron James and you're like, who the F is getting in that guy's way?
Yeah, it was wild.
It's
Silver
crazy.
lining, just as a basketball fan, just check that out.
You got your LeBron. That's great. I got to see Messi this year. That was late stages of a legend.
There you go.
My first Messi. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. Again, thanks to Bobby and Noah. We will have more of the crew back on Saturday for the Dallas game. Bobby, are you doing Dallas too? I forget.
Yes.
Okay, so these two will be in Dallas. We'll have a couple people back here holding it down from Boston, and we hope
5:30 tip off.
Is it? I thought it was 6.
Yep. 5:30.
I love it. We'll see you then. Thank you guys for hanging out. We'll see you next time.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way. Let's
Yeah.
slide Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke